Hello, friends. Welcome back to another podcast. In this podcast, I'm going to be briefly going over the best way to not be socially anxious or anxious in general, especially if you have anxiety or you get nervous around people. This is what you can do. So the first thing is that you should ideally channel that energy into excitement, right? So if you get nervous, that's okay, that's normal. You can just decide that this is going to serve you, and you can ask for it to serve you and declare that it'll serve you and ride it. So the way to ride the emotion of anxiety or fear and to turn it into love is essentially to surrender to it. Okay? So when we submit ourselves to our own pain or fear or worry, anxiety, we become honest with who we are in that moment. And we remind ourselves that we are much bigger than the situation. We are much bigger than any situation or emotion, because we are cosmic intelligence, right? And so the way in which we can really surrender to it is by sitting with ourselves in silence, taking some time, focusing on ourselves, what we need, what our mind is thinking, and what our heart is feeling, and actually drop down from the mind into the heart, right? And so we can do this through meditation. We can do this through breath work. What I like to do is I like to do it through prayer. So I will pray to all loving God, source, oneness, higher intelligence, and I will feel the love. I will feel that love in my heart, and I will allow for it to heal any part of me that feels worry, anxiety, etc. Because all these emotions are just us turning away from our true selves. In reality, every experience and situation and person is just us reflected back unto us, right? In their own way. And so in the way we decide, actually. So we can decide love, we can decide acceptance, we can decide joy, friendship, fun, family, happiness, true depth of relationship and love and shared bond. And we can only really decide this by dropping down into the heart, right? By surrendering to the Supreme. And essentially, God energy is everywhere. It's within every atom. It's in between every atom. It's within every person. And it makes up all of creation. So there's no pocket for fear. There's no space for fear. It doesn't exist. We make it up, We make it up because, in truth, the 3D reality is really jarring. It's really disruptive, that's kind of its job. But who we are as being 9D, 12D beings beyond that, originating from source consciousness, we truly, as the soul, are immovable and unmoved by any circumstances, any seemingly negative circumstances outside of us or even within us, right? Our emotions that could be really confusing and hard, because they become us when we feel them, right? When you feel an emotion, doesn't it overtake you, right? So how do we separate ourselves from our emotions? How do we distinguish who we really are apart from what we're feeling? And the way to do this is to, again, drop down into the heart, and focus there on Prime Source Creator, right? Focus there on God. And God is, everything, and there's nothing that is not, right? So again, there's nothing that is not love, fear and all that stuff, we make it up to give ourselves a story because we need contrast. That's how we grow as being stuck in these physical vessels. Like, that's how the soul grows, Otherwise, it would just be like, we would be ascended already, but like we're not, And so like anxiety, fear, man, that's an invitation for you to dive in, you know what I mean? I was doing a reading today and there was a car that popped out and it was a car that said jump in. And the visual artwork was like a galaxy that looked like an eye. And like that's literally who we are. Like we are the depth, we are even like the void, but not in an empty way, but in a very full way, So when we meditate, we can actually go there and sit there, and we come back to who we are. And when we don't meditate, when we're taken out of that connection with self, with God, then the 3D reality is really jarring, and it is also difficult to change. Like, it is difficult to go through changes, to allow oneself to be awakened. Like, that's a really brave and bold undertaking, And so I'm speaking generally, but I'm also speaking microscopically. Like, when it comes to daily awakenings, daily realizations, daily habits that change for good sometimes, like daily like musings and understandings with oneself as we relate to life, right? Like, that stuff is like really a lot, man. And it's easy to want to go back into how we were before in our comfort zone. But we should avoid the comfort zone at all costs, because the comfort zone is the death zone. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing there except living like a boring, stagnant life. And sometimes you need a little bit of that to heal. And then, things come in waves, things come in cycles. So you heal, and then you get back out there. You mess some shit up, like, you, like, create some karma, baby, some good karma, of course, and then, you're given a time period again for healing, rejuvenation, rest, right? So, like, however this looks for you, I'm just speaking generally based off of, like, cycles in nature and universal cycles, which essentially operate based off of the sine-cosine curve, because, things happen in that way, including moon phases, including everything. But like, it's just really amazing when we accept love into our lives instead of fear, when we have courage, when we take the chance to open our heart, when we like, be ourselves fully. All that stuff takes courage, man. Like, it takes so much willingness to explore oneself, explore life, explore potential, explore possibility, and you don't know, like, what's gonna happen. Like, does anybody know what's gonna happen tomorrow? Like, literally nobody knows, and so like, I just want to say that however you're feeling, don't hide it, like, don't mask it, like, it's okay to be yourself. This is something I had to learn after, like, maybe, like a decade of masking, or more than that. I feel like I was masking for a lot more than that in my life, but, it's a response to not feeling, like you can be yourself, but you can be, and it takes maybe a whole spiritual awakening to realize that, but you can be yourself. And even if, you're a little bit, like, nervous, or however you channel that high voltage energy, like, that's fine. And, you're doing great. I just want to say that, like, you don't have to appear perfect all the time or be perfect all the time. Like, that's something I really had to come to terms with. I'm still coming to terms with it because, perfection is an illusion, but, yeah, there's a fine line between wanting to improve yourself and then being, like, obsessive over it. And it's important to be allowing of growth, however that looks, right? Like, perfection does not, even, it's not real, it doesn't exist, so, like, you're not gonna appear perfect to people all the time, and that's okay, because they're not either, like, nobody is, like, do we all know anything? Like, we're just really doing our best, so, yeah, I believe that's it for this podcast. I just wanted to do a quick one. These full moon energies have been really, really messing with me. Like, I can't even begin to explain it or describe it. But hopefully, I do know there was like a shedding and like a clearing that happened for the collective, for people, but hopefully, like, you guys are getting more sleep than I am. But yeah, I love you guys. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you the next one. Peace.